Welcome back to another episode of the Hopecast. Steve and Richard are here with Neal today. How you doing, Neal?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me.
Yes, our pleasure. We have a lot to talk about today. We brought Neal on to share his journey. My journey is motoring along. Yesterday, I had my pre-op at the hospital. Everything checks out. EKG, blood work. So far, they said the only time you'll hear from us is if the blood work is bad. Well, I didn't hear anything, and the EKG was good. So
Good.
it started sinking in a little bit more, like this is for real.
Yeah.
It
So
gets that way in a hurry, doesn't it?
yes, so 2 weeks from today is my surgery date. But I met Neal on another podcast. He runs a podcast here in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Beautiful Murfreesboro. I could say beautiful today. It hasn't been so beautiful the last few days.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Storms from Hades have been kicking our butts. But anyways, Neal, would you like to introduce yourself to our guests?
Sure. So my name's Neal DiPentino. I've been actually in Murfreesboro, Tennessee now for about the past 25 years. It'll be 25 years. Well, actually 25 years this month, as a matter of fact. Time kind of does slip up on you, doesn't it?
It does.
But I own a business called Titan Media Works here in Murfreesboro. We do podcast production for a number of clients across the country. And we recently started a morning show here called Good Morning Murfreesboro, where I'm the producer. I'm behind the camera because that's where I belong. And we've been doing that for just a little bit over 6 months now. And we're getting rave reviews from the community. And what we do is we like to talk about, the things that make our community shine. One of the things that's really beautiful about where we live is that we do have a volunteer spirit, and we have a spirit for charity and a spirit for helping others. And that's really how I got to meet Richard, and we had him on the podcast to talk about what you're doing. And I just think that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
All right. Very nice. This is, our thing is let's educate people. Let's share some stories so everyone realizes that they're all a little bit different, and, how we address them, the choices we make, etc. So when did this journey for you start?
For the journey for prostate cancer or
Yes, sir.
Well, it started in 2017. It was interesting because I just celebrated my 60th birthday. My kids, I'm originally from Denver, and my kids were all in town. We had a big celebration, and they went home. And right after they left to go back to Denver, I had my annual physical. And I do have to do a shout out to my wife because prior to us getting married, I've never even thought about getting a physical other than, once in a while. I mean, I go in and see the doctor whenever I had a cold, and it's kind of like, I think, in my generation, especially like my dad's generation, it was kind of a sign of weakness if you went to the doctor too much. And so I just kind of took on that kind of same mentality. But she was the one who said, no, you have to have this done every year. And so Paul Patel is my doctor here in town. He's a wonderful guy. And he's been taking care of me and looking after me now for the last 25 years. And in 2017, I went in for my annual physical. And I think because I had done this on a frequent basis or an annual basis, he had all of my numbers from previous years. And I think, like I mentioned to you before, the number wasn't really that high. I mean, it was high, but it wasn't like anything that seemed out of the ordinary. But what was out of the ordinary was how quickly it changed, because it went from almost nothing, to like something. And I apologize, I can't remember what that number was. It was a long time ago. But it did, send up a red flag, and he thought that it would be wise for me to see a urologist, which I did. They did a biopsy, an MRI, and determined that I had cancer. And so it was on then. It's the C word is a really scary thing, and I kept hearing from people that, look, if you're going to have cancer, this is the cancer you need to have. And I thought that was the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life.
Go. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, it's like it's cancer is scary. And
but it's the good cancer.
It's the good cancer. It's like the one to have. I guess what they were trying to say is that, this type of cancer is less likely to spread than another type of cancer. I don't know if that's true or not, but it scared the death out of me. And so went to the urologist, had the MRI, came back, had cancer. Excuse me. He scheduled an appointment with. He wasn't a surgeon, so I was going to have to go somewhere else to have the surgery if I decided to go that way. But first, he scheduled an appointment with a radiologist, and I went and met with him here in Murfreesboro. And you know, I don't know, I was kind of like leery about the radiology, but you know, when I left, I thought, you know, maybe this is the direction I want to go. Um, but I scheduled another appointment with a urologist, the surgeon in at Vanderbilt, and we went to see him. And it was really kind of funny because the guy came in and like Josh Rogan. I mean, he's just like a big, burly, kind of very loud type dude, and he kind of like when he walked through the door, he kind of freaked me out just because of his appearance and the way he acted. And he said, "Look, I looked over your MRI, I've looked at your everything, and I think that we're okay." He said, I think that we're just going to have like observation for a while. So what that meant was like we're going to get PSAs every few months. We're going to have you come in. We're going to make sure that this thing doesn't spread. But I think it's inside the prostate. I don't think you have anything to worry about. So we're not going to even recommend doing surgery right now. And I mean, it was a huge relief. I mean, my wife was with me at the time, and I didn't realize just how heavy this was on her, and she just burst into tears. I mean, it just was like such a relief. But before he left the office, he said, I think what we want to do is we want to go ahead and schedule another biopsy. And this time what we're going to do is we're going to take a biopsy right into the cancer because we have the MRI. We know exactly where it's at. Actually, I think they did another MRI. Then they did that. And a couple of weeks went by, and they got in touch with me and said, look, this thing is a little bit more advanced than we thought it was, and we're going to suggest that you have the surgery. And at that time, he asked if I had seen a radiologist, and I said I had. He said, well, would you like to see one of ours? And I thought, I don't know if there's any reason to now because I've already, met with one. But we decided to go ahead and see the radiologist at Vanderbilt. And the one thing that I think kind of made me decide to have the surgery was when we were talking with him. It just sounded like the whole process was just. I mean, first of all, it was incredibly long. There was a lot involved with it. There was hormone shots that were involved with it, and then the thing I think that was that sealed the deal was that he told me if this didn't work, the chances are that I wouldn't be able to have the prostate surgery because of tissue scarring. And so my wife and I talked it over, and we decided that it was the best to have the surgery, and that's where I did.
Well, we always talk about this support group that's on Facebook and the fact that every time you go there, no matter what you decide you're going to do, you get blasted by people telling you how dumb that decision is. Mm-hmm. And we always said, you know what, it doesn't matter. This is a personal decision. Like you said, you need to get your loved ones involved, get everybody behind you, make an informed decision once you get all of this. I posted something the other day and somebody goes, well, you need to see more than one doctor. And I go, my whole point was, don't ask us what to do. The Facebook group, you don't know who you're talking to. Listen to your doctor and listen to the people that actually matter, that are going to help you make that decision. Now, surgery has its own complications. It depends on if it's nerve sparing or not. That's one of them. Number two, incontinence is now instead of prolonged, because a lot of these side effects, it doesn't matter which option you choose, you're going to end up with them. It's just now or later. Mm-hmm. And I said, I'm healthier now than I would be later if we're going to have to deal with stuff, which was part of my thought process that I went through. But surgery obviously went well.
It did. I mean, it went really well. I guess it did. 8 years, almost 8 years now, right? So, I mean, it was invasive. It was difficult. It was difficult for my wife. During that time, I mean, she had to take off work to spend time with me. During the recovery period, I've got this thing in my mind that I don't like pain pills. And so I'm just, for whatever reason, I'm just like paranoid that I'm going to get addicted. And because I've seen that happen to family members, and it really scared me. So I avoided doing the pain pills. Well, what happened was in doing that, my body, I wasn't relaxing. My body wasn't healing. I was in pain, and I ended up back in the ER. And I was there for probably about 12 hours. They gave me some medication. They got me calmed down and everything. And they told me that I had to take the pain medication in order to have my body heal. Nobody had told me that before. I'm like, no, I'm not going to get addicted to this stuff. I'm okay
Right.
with a couple Tylenols. Just I'm good. I'm a man. I can deal with it, right? No, that was really the only complication that I ran into during the surgery or right after post-op. You'd mentioned an incontinence and, sexual drive and, just that type of stuff, the uncomfortable stuff to talk about. That's part of it as far as the healing process. But I can honestly tell you that that's been fairly okay. I mean, it's not great, but I'm not, 21 years old anymore either. So
That's true. Yeah.
yeah.
Right. So you did have a complication of sorts and had to go back because of the pain pills. I
Yeah.
ran into weird complications with mine because I aspirated into my lungs. So I had aspiration pneumonia on top of this, ended up with 2 ports in my stomach to drain abscesses. It was an ugly thing. I was in the hospital on and off for about 3 weeks. And I came home and I said, I'm running 103 fever. This is not right. We'd go to the hospital. The third time I was at the emergency room, my wife said, you're not letting him leave until you do the CAT scan that his doctor wanted to have done. So everyone has different hurdles that they go through, right? I had a really weird time. And I said, Richard, you have to understand the people that are on that group are there telling ugly stories, because if they're like you and they had a successful surgery and haven't had a problem, they're not telling that story.
Right.
Right. But there are so many things, and for whatever reason, prostate cancer is a taboo thing. People don't want to talk about it. And we've said it, but I go, how many times have you asked someone, what's your PSA since you went through this? Because early detection is key. And did you have symptoms at all?
I didn't.
Right.
No, not at
And
all.
they said that it was aggressive after you did that. Then the pathology report on the backside confirmed how aggressive it was.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can honestly say that, without having regular physicals, I would have never known. And that's really what saved my life. I have a good friend of mine who went through the same thing, but I had early detection. He didn't. And his actually, the cancer was outside of the prostate. So his was a little bit more of a difficult surgery, difficult recovery time, that type of thing. But two things I think too that play into it is first of all early detection, making sure you're getting your regular physicals, but also keeping yourself in fairly good physical condition. I'm overweight. There's no ifs or buts about it. I might even be borderline obese, but I do try to eat properly. I exercise regularly. I did even more so back then. I think the one thing that freaked me out the most afterwards is they did the robotic thing, and it kind of jacked with my stomach muscles, which I didn't have very many to start with.
Right.
But I mean, I just had a real hard time looking at myself because it was like there was like nothing there. It was just there was no muscle there at all. It just kind of hung there, my stomach. And so that to me kind of, I guess it's a little bit vain, but it kind of freaked me out a little bit. Like, is this ever going to change? But it eventually got better, over time.
Well, they're getting in there and they're doing major surgery and things are moving around, and they do say a lot of times, and I have that issue. I sit up and is that a hernia, that big old burp? And they go, nope, it's because the muscle tissue gets so thin when they're doing all of this. And I said, is that ever going to go away? And the doc said, it's nothing to worry about. Don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. I'm not going to go in and have surgery to put some kind of weird mesh thing in there to keep it. I go, you
No.
know what? I had cancer. I've been through a lot of BS. This is the way it is. It's not
Yeah.
like when we were younger, we didn't run around and ride bikes off hills and do crazy things, So, I mean, it's going to catch up to us, but this is such a silent thing. And
Yeah.
the people that say it's the good cancer and it's the, all of that stuff, when you go through it, I go, no one that has gone through this is saying that.
Yeah.
It can't be.
Yeah.
It's nothing good about it. It's scary. And then you think, holy cow, my sons could do this. My daughters could end up with breast cancer. It could be. So did you have a family history of this, or was this, you were like the first?
Yeah, well, yeah, my grandfather on my mother's side had prostate cancer, but it was at a very late age. I
Right.
think he was in his 70s when he had his cancer and everything. And he had other problems. He had an aneurysm that eventually kind of did him in, but he was 84, I think, when he passed away. He had a really good life from the time he had the surgery until till
So
he
he
passed
did
away.
opt for the surgery?
Yeah, 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 and it was a lot different back then too. I mean,
Sure.
they don't have the technology. They didn't have the technology back then. It was a really invasive surgery back then.
So that's when he got laid all the way open,
All the
right?
way open.
And they
Yeah,
said that
yeah,
the percentage, a lot of people died on the table from bleeding out
yeah,
when they were doing that because it is mass opening. They have to get to everything. And it is definitely advanced. The technologies are there. We were talking about his PET scan, and I go, how much was your PET scan? And I go, but the equipment, the
yeah.
upkeep on all of this stuff. But holy cow, it was just bill after bill after bill.
Oh
And
yeah,
then
yeah.
you go,
It's
okay,
pricey. Yeah,
now what do we do? So are
yeah.
you like at a yearly PSA check? Are you just doing it with your annual physical?
Right now, it's just with my annual physical. Right after the surgery, it was like every 3 months. Then it went to every 6 months, and then after the first, I think it was after the first 2 years, it went to annual visit with a urologist and everything. And then it was like, yeah, you're cleared, and just get your regular PSAs and everything with your doctor, or your regular doctor. And I have, and everything is just fine.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
See, Richard, did you hear that? Okay, he has questions.
So I want to go back to you saying you didn't want to do the pain meds, and it kind of jacked you up a little bit, because I'm glad you said that, because that's the exact boat I'm in right now. I'm looking at this and I'm like, nah, I don't want any pain meds. I don't like to be high. I don't like that feeling. Just give me some Advil. But hearing your story, maybe I will take some pain meds.
It was it was really scary because I started like throwing up. I couldn't stop throwing up, and it was coming out. I don't know how gross you want me to get on this program, but
Yeah, we're real.
yeah, it was gross. It was like a yellow color, and it was just like I'm thinking to myself, "Oh my gosh, I'm throwing up my insides." Like, I had no idea because I hadn't had anything to really eat, just other than liquids and everything. And so it was scary. It scared my wife. We rushed to Vanderbilt. They admitted me into the ER, and they monitored me for a while. And they came up with it. They determined that that's what the problem was. That I was just my body wasn't allowing itself to heal because I was stressing myself out so much, and I was in so much pain. And Tylenol was not going to do it. Advil was not going to do it. And it was explained to me, and like. I guess I like I said, I've known family members that have been addicted to opioids because of over prescribing them, right? And that was what my fear was. I mean, I don't know anything about this stuff. I'm not a doctor. I just know that what I've seen and what I've learned from my personal history. And so it kind of freaked me out, and I just didn't want to do it. But it was explained to me that the doses they were giving me were like very minimal, and they were controlling it and watching it closely, because at that time too, you'll remember all the opioid thing was coming out, and people
Oh,
were,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
So you took them, but they were monitoring. I think if you're in the hospital and they say, "Hey, you need to take it," I didn't for the exact same reason. I've had friends that they hurt their back, and the next thing you know, they're eating pills like Tic Tacs, and this is
Yeah.
not anything I want to deal with. But the pain stuff with all my other things that I had going on, it was all pain, so it didn't
Yeah.
it didn't matter. But I didn't want to complicate that because my brain was having trouble keeping up with everything anyhow. Because when you're
Yeah.
done and they're coming at you with all the reports and they're trying to tell you what's going on, they go, "Get out of here." If you're only there for a day, because most of the time you go home the next day,
Right.
and I would say you have so many questions when you're leaving the facility. It's kind of like when you have a newborn baby and they send you home and they go, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, we need
Yeah.
to stay a couple more days. We didn't read the book, whatever."
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
this is just one of those crazy deals. I actually had a detectable PSA on my 6th month.
Mm.
But they told me I was outside the margins. They said you're stage 3, whatever. It hasn't metastasized anywhere else at this point. So here's a weird question. I asked Richard this. If my PSA level were to go up to where they said we're going to do radiation, and I said, "Richard, would you have them radiate your prostate bed, or if you have cancer that's can metastasize anywhere, do you wait till it hits the 2 so you can go in and actually have a PET scan to see where it is?" Because my thing is, you're not going to radiate any more than you need to, but don't we need a target? As a deer hunter and shooting a bow forever, you want to know your target and what's behind it. And with
Mhm.
radiation, behind it's a bad deal. I don't want all
Yeah.
the bowel issues. I don't want to have. So it was just a weird question. I go, other people obviously have gone through this. But what would be your take if they told you, "Hey, guess what? You're going to have to do this." Would you just do the prostate bed? Or after all this time, could it be anywhere? I don't know.
Is this for me or Richard? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was for you. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
All right. Wake up, Neil.
You just lob one over the plate, somebody swings.
Yeah, I guess I've never really given it that much thought. I've been fortunate that um, that my PSAs come back goose eggs, like every time,
Undetectable.
undetectable altogether. And I guess to me, I mean, I have a lot of faith in my doctor, and I would really um, I would really look for his advice on what to do with that. Give you a good example. I don't normally have like high blood pressure. I'm pretty fit in that area. But I had a knee replacement surgery, and I went in for pre-op, and my blood pressure was really high. And the only thing I could attribute it to is like, yeah, I'm going to see a doctor who's going to replace my knee.
Yeah.
So yeah, my blood pressure is going to be a little bit high. So I'm sitting in with the person who's doing all the pre-op stuff, and the doctor comes in and she says, "Well, we can't operate on you unless we can get the blood pressure down." So she prescribed me a medication. And so I'm driving home, and the first thing that hits my mind is like, I met this person. I'm sure she's capable. I met her. I talked to her for 5 minutes, and she's prescribing me medication. I said, "Nah, I'm not going to do this." So I got in contact with my doctor. He had me come into the office, and he looked at the prescription. "No, we're not doing that. We're doing this." And he gave me another prescription. So that's how much I trust my doctor. I would
Right.
not do anything without going through him first. But I can honestly tell you also too, just this is kind of maybe a weird thing. I've known a lot of people who've had cancer, not necessarily prostate cancer. Unfortunately, way too many people who have had to go through radiation treatment, chemotherapy, and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know if you felt this or not, but I almost felt guilty that I didn't have to have that, because this is the good cancer, right? All you got to do is just get rid of that puppy, and
Mhm.
you're off. You're good. So the whole idea of having to follow up with radiation or chemotherapy or something like that, it has crossed my mind, but in a different way.
So mentally, you said, I really don't think about prostate cancer that much anymore. The
No.
PSA comes up, you don't even get nervous with the results that are happening. And how did you get over that? Or was it just a time thing when it kept coming up undetectable?
I think for the first couple years, it was one of those one of those things where we were kind of like on pins and needles waiting for the results, But then after the second year, it kind of eased up a little bit, and then by the fifth year, it's like, I was because I think it was 5 years where they released me, and I said, "This is it. I've got it." So I really don't even think about it again until I have. So I'll have my blood test and everything, and then like a week later, I go into my physical, and my doctor goes through all my numbers and everything, and
Right.
I don't sit there and oh, hope it's zero. But he said, "Yep, you're in good shape. Everything's good. Still goose eggs, and we're good." So that's kind of how I look at it.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't know.
Hmm.
And like I said, I have one coming up. My doctor told me I don't want to do it early because you're going to worry about the results. And I go, why? What do you think the results? You don't
Yeah.
know what the results
Yeah.
are going to be. But he said since it did go up, it's detectable. He goes, I don't want you to freak out over any of this,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it could be a weird reading, but we'll watch it. And I go,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's hard to get out of my brain. And
Yeah.
I still had the apologizing all the time for getting prostate cancer. And they go, well, you didn't cause it. I know, but if it wasn't for the prostate cancer, my wife wouldn't have gone through all of this and my children wouldn't have gone through
Yeah.
all of it. That's what I feel guilty about, not the fact that I got it because I had no control over it.
Yeah.
But that guilt, you felt the guilt? Yes, no?
I did, absolutely. And you're right. One thing that you mentioned was, dealing with your family and everything. I can remember when I told my youngest son, I mean, he was a mess. He lost it completely. And that was harder on me than anything, because if there's anything in the world that you don't want to do, is you don't want to disappoint your family. And I did feel very guilty for it. I was like, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get it, and he knew that. I mean, it wasn't that he was trying to blame me for anything at all, but it was just, I think, when people use the C word, they think instant death, right? Um,
Sure.
and it's not. Today, I think, we obviously don't have a cure for cancer, but I think we've come a long way with treatment, and, thank God. And, it doesn't mean instant death. It means that, you still have a chance. And I'm a pretty positive guy, you know? So, and I'm also a kind of guy that I have a lot of faith in the people around me too. Like I said, my doctor, my wife, my family. I can tell you a story I had when I had my knee surgery. I trusted the doctor, but the only thing I try, it was funny because he looked like Doogie Howser. I mean, he really looked very young. And the first thing out of my mouth is like, "Have you done this before?" And I think I offended him a little bit,
Yeah.
but it kind of freaked me out. But then I thought, okay, well, he's told me, explained to me, he's done it several times and explained what the process was. And I was like, okay, well, that sounds good to me. The flip side of that is one of my really good friends had knee surgery shortly thereafter. He was on the internet looking at every knee surgery video. I mean, like graphic ones.
Mhm.
And he's like, man, this is what they do. And he was telling me about it. I'm like, I don't want to know about it.
Right.
Don't tell me that stuff. Right.
Mhm.
It's like, so that's kind of how I am though. I mean, like I do have a lot of faith and I also have a lot of faith in God that I'm going to pull through. And it's in his hands, not mine.
Yes,
There you go.
it's a big one.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a lot of faith in God also, and I refuse to go on Google or WebMD and look up prostate cancer or the treatment. I'll trust my surgeon.
Yeah. There you go. I think that's good.
Yeah, I got enough to worry about.
It's that education though. You need the education without the being scared.
Yeah.
It's like I go, I don't want you guys to be paranoid when you're out in the world. I want you to be aware of your surroundings. And it's the same. I needed to know. I'm just one of those people. I go, okay, let's figure this out. Reputable sites. And I was reading and I go, I'm scared. And my wife goes, slow down. You're looking at worst case scenarios. And I go,
Yeah.
this is scary, and so that's how I was dealing with it. But I too had children that lost it when I told them, and I said, my way was, I'm just going to rip the Band-Aid off. I go, I have some news for you. It's not good, but there's nothing we can do about it. So here's the deal. I went to the doctor and I just ripped the Band-Aid off. And
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the right way, but it allowed them to ask questions on the backside and get educated.
Yeah.
And two of my kids put their head in the sand, and the other two were researching. The one that's still at home was listening to my wife and I discuss this, and she got really scared and withdrawn. And I go, we need to talk about this because you're trying to be that person for me, but I'm still dad. I need to be there for you. So it was that tug of war thing. It was just scary. And I can't imagine being on the other side of that. My wife, a trooper, my rock getting through all of this stuff, but it scared her so bad. And then that aftermath of stuff I had to deal with, she goes, I thought I was going to lose you. And I go, that's everyone's fear. And so you have to be the trooper and go, I'm going to survive this. I'm going to move on. Whatever happens, happens. We'll tackle it when it gets there. But it's hard every time it gets around, especially after the last results. This next one, I have been like pins and needles. And I go, so Richard, how is your journey going? Let's talk about that for a while. He has the surgery, then I get to go find out what happens with mine. But it's scary. What do you tell people that have to go through this? Have you talked to people that are scared? Have you talked them through your story of prostate cancer?
I really haven't. I'd like to. I don't know that I necessarily have come across very many people or anybody that has, told me that they got prostate cancer other than until Richard. And I kind of found out, I don't know, through the grapevine somehow. I don't even know how, before you came on our podcast or on our show. And so I could tell that day that you were something heavy weighing on your mind and your heart.
Yes.
And that's why I kind of pulled you aside after we were done and asked you about it and everything. And I'm glad you told me your story. It was, at least I could share with you that, I think it's going to be all right. Obviously I don't know that for sure. Nobody does. But I can honestly tell you from personal experience. And I think Richard was the first person I really shared that with. And we didn't spend a whole lot of time, but, I think hopefully I know that particular day, if I'm not mistaken, I think this is the day you got your results. Or you knew.
I think it was either I was going to the PET scan or getting my results. PET scan. I think I was going to get my results.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a big day. It was a
yeah.
It was yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, he was a real trooper though. He came on the show. He brought his cookbook, talked up big.
Yes,
we had a good time.
I still owe you one.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, see, that and some of the stuff he's posting that he's out there smoking, that's what he needs to send to.
Yeah,
you can do that, can't you?
Hey, you're talking about smoking meats, right?
Yeah. What were you?
Okay, I just want to make sure.
I don't know what you were thinking. I was talking about the. Okay.
Favorite thing to do is cooking for people. I love cooking for people, and so anytime you guys want to come over, I'll 100% cook.
All right, there you go. I love it.
So here's a question: did you take a trip either with your wife or your family before or after your surgery?
Yeah, I went to Denver to see my kids. We'd already had our summer, kind of, we'd already had our summer trip and all that kind of stuff by the time that I found out about all this. I think I found out about it like in June, and we, did a family thing in May. I went back to Denver in October and then came back for the surgery. It was in late November. It was right before Thanksgiving. And, but that was something I usually do anyway. It's like, it wasn't a plan that I needed to go and see everybody and just in case. It wasn't that kind of an attitude. It was more of well, it's time for Dad to come out and, kind of like all these years that my kids kind of, you know, uh, lived with me and I took care of them. It was a good time for them to take care of me. But that was the funny thing too, is that, when I did go back out there after the cancer and after the surgery and everything, uh, I mean, they treated me a lot differently, and I didn't like that. I
Right.
mean, it was like, and even some of my, and I don't know if they ever said anything to their neighbors or whatever, but even some of my son's friends were like, "Oh, I'll get that for you, Mr. D. Oh, I'll do that for you." And I'm like, "Look, I can do it. I'm fine. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me do this stuff, whatever it was." I mean, I was trying to put up a canopy one time and I'm like, I was struggling a little bit with it, not because of the cancer, but because I'm weak. I'm not a very strong man.
I was just struggling, the good struggling, right?
Yeah. And here's, "Oh, I'll get that for you, Mr. D." And like, just hey, sit back, relax, and like,
And you go, okay, that's
all
what
right.
you know,
Well,
back up a
that's
little
hard
bit.
to do too, though, when you get to be. I mean, because you're so used to being active and everything. But and a lot of things too. It's funny you talk about like some of the dysfunctions that occur after the surgery and everything. I don't know if that's really because of the surgery. It's because I'm a 68-year-old man. I don't know what other 68. I don't have that conversation with people to find out, right?
Hey, I have a
So,
question for you. Is it
uh-oh.
no, that's what happens.
Yeah,
That is not a
yeah.
discussion that is open.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, when you look at, like I said, I'm a pretty positive person, and the positive that I came out of with this whole thing is that my my sons, my two sons, and my daughter, they all neglected getting their physicals on a regular basis, and since then they've all like they've said no, we're doing. I told them, look, this thing is hereditary. My grandfather had it, I had it, you could have it. Okay, you
Right.
need to get your PSA checked for my boys. My grandmother died of colon cancer, and it was back in the 60s, but they didn't have the detection back then. They didn't have
Right.
what they have now, the technology and everything. Um, Today, it could have been prevented if she would have, been alive now. But I tell them you need to have that check every 5 years, when you get in your 40s and maybe even sooner. So my oldest son, he's still kind of hemmed and hawed a little bit about it. He's a little resistant, and he's got a very strong wife. She drove him to the doctor, said, "No, you're getting this done."
Yeah.
And they did it all. Everything's good, but at least now they have the records so
Right.
they can watch it.
You need that baseline so they
You
can
do.
tell. Like, I mean, mine wasn't crazy, but like yours, they go, whoa, whoa, whoa. We went from,
Yeah.
the 4.2 to 5.4 was a jump that they were, ooh, we need to check it out. But when it jumped to 8.8, they go, wait, stop. This is way too
Yeah.
quick. Something's wrong. And I go, what? And they go, it could be anything, because your PSA could be up from a number of things, but it is at least that card that they get to play and say, the next thing we're going to do is the digital exam, and then
Hmm.
after that, if you need to, you're going to do the CAT scan, and now you did the MRI and then
Yeah.
the biopsy. So it was an
Yeah.
MRI guided, or did you have to do that?
The second one was, yeah. The second one was. The first one was just random.
Right.
The biopsy, um, and followed by an MRI. And then the second one, it was the same. They had identified where the cancer cells were. They went in, took the biopsy of the cancer cell, and then
Right.
did the MRI afterwards.
Uh-huh.
After
Yeah.
you
Yep.
after you were done, did you go to rehab for like your pelvic floor? Build that.
Mm-mm. Nah, I didn't know if that was I didn't know if that was something back then. I know that, you had to, what is it, the Kegel? Is I
The
say that right?
Kegels, yeah.
Kegel. Yeah, you had to work on
Uh-huh.
that kind of stuff. And I mean, I, that is not a huge thing with me, other than like if belly laughs are off limits these days, and like during this time of year when there's a lot of allergies and I sneeze a lot and everything like that. But generally, that's pretty much in control. The one, I know it sounds really crazy, but prior to the surgery, like there was times where I was standing in front of the toilet for like ever, and you're like,
Mhm.
"Oh, God, please." And I remember going to a Titans game and I was getting crap from the guy behind me because it was like trying. Okay. But, then after that, it's like, forget about it. It's like, yeah, like a fire hose, baby.
Well, they make things work again. That's
Yeah.
for sure. But and that's it. You is that because I'm getting older, or is that because there's a problem and you don't think about it? I
Mm-mm.
mean, it's like I was telling people, I go, look, since you're a little kid, you're in the men's room and you hear the older guy having trouble,
Mm-hmm.
right? You go, what is the deal? I'm glad I don't have that.
Yeah.
Eventually, they said, how many times are you getting up at night? I said, maybe once.
Yeah.
If, I have a couple beers before bed, I have to get up. And they go, you're not going all the time? I said, no. And they said, okay, how about? And I said, no, I don't have the symptoms that are, on the sheet of this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But when they drop that C word on you and your brain stops and your world erupts for a little bit. I mean, once the dust settles, now I look at it and I said, I went through all of this, and you don't get a wizzo button. Nobody's talking about the thing, and you go, it was cancer, people.
Yeah. Yeah.
The good stuff, right?
The
But
good
it's like
stuff. Yeah.
it's pretty lonely on the backside because you don't have that discussion with everyone.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Richard and I were talking about when we started this. It's, look, let's talk. Let's get real. If you're having problems, on the backside of this, there are options. And a lot of the people are so concerned with that biopsy, and they go, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? And I go, I didn't have anything to mellow me out. I wasn't under, and people said that they, slept through the process, and I didn't have that option. And it was uncomfortable, embarrassing with the thing. And I was at a teaching hospital, so I had a room full of people in there. And I was just, you know what? When you get to this point, it doesn't matter because people are going to go, hey, I need to do this, I need to do that. And you're all, yep, okay, whatever. But you lose that intimidation or whatever is gone
Yeah.
when you
Yeah.
go through all of this. And it truly isn't as bad as it sounds. And a lot of times you make it out to be worse. I had a friend that went through this. He had his surgery about the time I found out about it, and he didn't tell anyone. And when he found out that I was going in for surgery, he goes, well, guess what? It was the time he found his PSA was elevated and he had to start doing the radiation. So I was like following his footsteps. We had the same doctors, same surgeons, and I said, okay, so what did you experience? I had someone that I could ask those questions to. But it was never, excuse me, when you have the surgery, how much length did you lose? And were you able to get an erection afterwards without any? And I go, you know what? Those conversations, although it is part of it and it's real, it's something that is not talked about. And the backside of all of the stuff that you're dealing with, that cancer doesn't go away.
Right.
And different people, different levels, obviously, but this is a scary journey, and I love hearing stories about it was good and I kind of forgot about it now. Once a year there's a, oh no, but what's scary is everything's good until it isn't. And you have to, mentally, you seem like you're one of those people that just handles whatever life throws at you and moves on.
Well, I'm just that dumb. What can I say?
I want to be that way. I'm not going to worry about it anymore.
Yeah. I kind of feel a little bit guilty because I know what Richard does and how he's helping people and everything, based on a lot of his experiences and stuff. And I guess I never thought about it. I felt it was a very personal thing. And, I did have conversations with my good friend who had the surgery at the same time as I did, ahead of time, and a little bit afterwards. And our recuperation was very different, very different. But like I say, he was a smoker. He was a big eater. He was like really short and weighed about 300 pounds. And so he kind of there was a lot of underlying things that, gave him, additional problems that I didn't have, but, I never really thought, I thought I felt it was a very personal thing. And I never really thought about, what other people might feel and other people who, might be going through the same thing, who just might want to have a conversation with somebody. So I really, really appreciate you giving me this opportunity.
No, this is why we're doing it, man. I thank you for sharing this story because it is personal. It is, you have to be vulnerable with all of this. And,
Yeah.
and I appreciate you sharing your story. I'm hoping we can do this, and as more people get on here and talk, they realize that, there's other people that need this, because that support page every day, there's somebody that just got diagnosed or their PSA was way elevated and they're scared. And I go, if we can take away some of that fear, misery likes company. Is that the way? I mean, if you are in the trenches with somebody that's been through it, it makes it a lot easier, I think, on the backside. Our journey isn't going to be their journey, but at the same time, we're here. We can listen and share that with other people. So I think that is the goal, right? So
Absolutely.
Right. Well, I think that puts us at about 45 minutes. So I think that's a wrap, man. Neal,
All right.
thank you for coming on and opening up for our listeners.
Absolutely.
I definitely appreciate it because I'm 2 weeks out now.
Wow.
So it is what it is, man.
it is what it is.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Well, it's in God's hand, brother. You're going to be fine.
Exactly. I can't change anything. So I'm just going to put my faith in the Lord and my surgeon and hope for the best, pray for the best.
Yep. Absolutely.
All right,
Very good.
guys, till next weekend. And just remember, one day, one step, one victory at a time. You're not alone.
I like it.